Good evening, this is Jack from Charting the Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the evening of Sunday, the 8th of March. My disclaimer, it is for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some what I'm doing and learn from it, transfer it to your own charts, and I'm not here to issue trading signals. This is a video for paying subscribers at CTM The Bigger Picture .substack.com, and it's published on YouTube after a delay of a week. All right, I'm showing tonight's charts because obviously we've seen some interesting stuff today. We've actually seen a low of, on ES tonight, we've actually seen a low of 65.84, which means that it's made, 5th of February, we had a double top breakdown with a target in the 65.82 to 6 area. So obviously that's now reached target. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to mark that in. Suddenly with this huge gap down, which is currently after a bit of a rally at 145 down. So obviously that was pretty brisk. No current positive divergence. We do actually have on SPX a larger head and shoulders which has broken down, which hasn't made target yet, but the initial double top has made target, and that was a nice pattern. All right, NQ has gone lower. I've got to say, I've got some things to say about the daily middle bands on these, but for what it's worth, that's down considerably today. How much is that down exactly? Right, that's down 615 at the moment. So that's that's a significant decline. No current positive divergence here. Waiting to see. We might see some setup overnight. We had some positive divergence on the RTY chart. That formed a bicycle at the close on Friday, and that has now failed. Looking at YM, we got a possible 60-minute bicycle brewing. That is down a lot. That's down, well, basically over 1,000, I think. DAX, DAX, we did have a potential double bottom forming here, but that has continued down with some force. ESTX, the same. And looking at Nikkei actually opened, someone mentioned to me it was down about 5%, and actually that's right. So obviously they're buying in all their oil, and another thing that's happened today is CL is currently up 26 and at 117, so it's gone through my double bottom target and may well be heading back up. Well, the next target would be a retest of the prior high at 122, and it's well on the way to that. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. All right. Okay, looking at the ES chart. First thing to say here is that we've got on the SPX chart, we've got a head and shoulders that's broken down with a target in the 65.40 area. Obviously, we're not there yet, but it's actually getting pretty close. Drop another 50 points, and that's going to make target too. We did have the same double top set up here, but actually it developed into a pretty clear head and shoulders, so I went with that instead. That if we get down to 65.40 area, we do actually have some decent support in about the 65.22 area, where we've got a possible much larger head and shoulders, or a possible asymmetric double top, which again could break down with lower targets. I was writing about this in my post on Thursday, I think. All right, looking at ES, one thing to mention here is that we had the 3SD lower band actually closed at 67.20 on Friday, and that the close was at 67.40. So it's down, we're down basically 50 handles below the 3SD lower band at the moment. And unless we see a really nasty shock, that would generally be a place where I'd be looking for support. And we have seen some support on these in the last few days. Here we had a spike below the 3SD lower band. We had a rally back into the daily middle band. The bands are expanding slightly, but they haven't expanded a lot. Not enough to take this kind of move at the moment. And while we are punching below the daily lower band, have to be aware of the possibility that we might see a significant rally. So I'll be watching for that possible positive divergence overnight. Looking at the hourly chart, nothing really, just the head and shoulders, which is broken down. 15-minute chart, nothing to see really anyway. Just a close-up on the head and shoulders, which is broken down with a target in the 65.40 area. All right, looking at Qs. Qs, we close, well, we're probably going to be punching below the daily middle band there too, although that was actually still above the standard daily lower band at the close on Friday. Hourly chart, no divergence. 15-minute chart, no divergence. Well, there's a sell signal here, but it's already made the possible near miss target. We don't have an obvious topping pattern here, apart from, hang on, wait a second. Right, apart from the overall double top here, which obviously if we get down into the 580 area would break down with a target significantly below. We could do that, but really I'd be thinking for a bit more back and forth to pay some more respect to the daily bands. It's unusual to see a strong punch below without it widening out first, but on the other hand, obviously this is a news thing, so it is a possibility. All right, Dyer was actually only closed just above the daily middle band on the 3SD lower band on Friday, so that's that's obviously dropping a lot. We've got a head and shoulders which has broken down here. Sorry, I haven't actually marked that in for some reason. We've got a head and shoulders here which has broken down with a target in the 450 area. I've written that in on here. Yes, 449 area. I've got it on here, which will be the correct one. Obviously, we're going to be going significantly towards that tomorrow morning, unless we see a hell of a rally overnight. So 15-minute, we've got an RSI 14 buy signal fix, but chances are we'll just lose that at the open tomorrow morning. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture chart on IWM. Okay, IWM, we've got on the daily chart, we were in the daily lower band area. Sorry, no, we actually closed below the 3SD lower band on Friday. So I think they've got 251, and we closed below it at 250.89. So obviously this is a big punch below it overnight tonight. RTY is down pretty heavily as well. Again, we haven't seen a very big a serious widening of the middle band yet. Sorry, of the bands yet, so I'm a little concerned we might see a very strong rally from here. But obviously this bull flag has broken down, and actually this bull flag, if this is the topping pattern, has a target down here at about the 237.5 area. We're now I've called the RSI 14 sell signal we've got as having reached the possible near miss target. Looking at the hourly chart, we've got an RSI 5 buy signal fix, but we may just lose that at the open tomorrow. And we've got an RSI 14 buy signal fixed on the 15-minute chart. All right, looking at DAX. DAX, we were seeing a lot of weakness. RSI 5 buy signal was brewing, but we're going to lose that in all probability. I'm looking to see whether we get decent support in the 950 area, well, 22.9k area, because we've got a decent looking head and shoulder neckline there, and really this isn't the sort of thing I'd be thinking was likely to be a double top. So we will see how that goes, but I was looking for some support there. It's not the only option, but it's the main option. So I'll be watching to see whether we get support there tomorrow. Looking at Nikkei, this was holding this rising support on Friday, but if we've closed down 5%, then we are a long way below it now. What's the topping pattern here? We haven't got one, and if we go below about the 52.2k area, then the obvious next target is down here at the next big support level, just above 48,000. All right, let's have a look at the DX chart. Okay, now DX has been going up with the Iran news. Everything else has been going down, but DX has been going up. I'm thinking that could go up further. We have retested this high, and we've got a potential level top set up here. We're still on a 60-minute sell signal. Looking at the other currencies, USD is heading lower, possible level bottom setup, weak 60-minute buy signal fix, but that hasn't really delivered anything yet. GBP USD hasn't reached the retest of the low yet, and I'm thinking probably will and may continue lower. USD JPY has bounced up higher. Looks as though we might be challenging the January high, which I've got here at 159.4 area. We might find some intervention to take it down when it gets to that level. But I'd quite like to see it get up into the previous high, which I think is in about the 161 area. USD CAD, we've got what could be a flag here. I'm watching the flag support here. If we see a sustained breakdown, then this would have a target at the early February low, no, late January low, I think, which is just above in about the 1.348 area. This is odd action, and that's because USD CAD tends to go up with the dollar, and at the moment, obviously, it's not doing that. Watching that with interest, but this is weaker than I would expect. Australian dollar maybe heading down towards this possible head and shoulder neckline, decent support area in the 69 area. And NZUSD is just continuing down at the moment. Not actually retested this low yet, but as on a general downward trend. All right, let's have a look at that on the bigger picture charts. And okay, US dollar. Thing to say here is that we've got a possible. We had an IHS which broke up here, or it was a double bottom actually. A double bottom, it broke up and it fell. And I did say when we got back to this low that we could continue down, but it was possible we'd set up a potential larger double bottom. Now this double bottom, it's got resistance in the 100.4 area, and if we get over that, then that would have a target which should be in about the 104.5 area, I think. I'll calculate that and work it out I'll work that out by Wednesday. But that, I think we'd be looking up at the 104.5 to 105 area. That is still very doable. I think we've got to get over the monthly middle band, which I've got at 101.15. But if we get up there, then we might actually get close to the bull flag resistance here. Now, honestly, I can't think of a single reason in the world why we'd go back and retest this high here at 114.78, but we do have the pattern here. And as we're seeing with oil at the moment, sometimes the pattern precedes the news by some considerable distance and comes out and plays out anyway, even if it's not particularly clear why it was going to play out. I'm really if I'd written the letter a couple of weeks ago, I'd have been talking about the possibility that this might happen with a collapse of Russia because of the Ukraine war going so badly. And as it is wrong. And but ultimately the effect is much the same. Okay, UUSD. Obviously, we still have a big bear flag there too. We've got another one on GBP USD. I am wondering about both of those breaking down. We will see. It's we've got some distance to go before that happens, particularly on USD, but we will see. All right, in terms of topping patterns here, we've got a potential head and shoulders forming here, or asymmetric double top. I've drawn it in those arrows there. That we may well find that is about to break down. And could take us considerably lower. GBP USD, nice looking double top, support in the 1.301 area. Looking at USD JPY. This is the high at 162, which I'd quite like to see retested. We had a government intervention when we got up to this one here, but if we're going to set up a nice looking double top here, which would be a good thing to see and would fit very much with this nice looking rising megaphone here, then that could set up a big move down, which I think is in the dollar's future. It's just a matter of when. In terms of USD JPY, we have an RSI 5 sell signal brewing, but actually the divergence we've lost on that. I would like to see that retest of 162. It would set up a very nice pattern on the bigger picture. Looking at USD CAD, it's been in this strange long range trade for 10 years now. In terms of a pattern to take us lower, there is a potential head and shoulders here. And I haven't marked it in yet. Might have marked it on the weekly. No, I haven't. But this could break down and get us to the target would be basically the bottom of the range in the 1.2 area. And we could see that, but it's not something I'd normally expect to see when the US dollar is going up, because USD CAD is positively correlated with the dollar, not negatively. We will see. On Australian dollar, we saw a break up over this declining resistance, which I think may well be preceding a sizable move up, but we could see a move down before we see that, and potentially we could be forming an inverted head and shoulders if we did that. On NZUSD, we've got this triangle which has broken up slightly, and is pulling back. It could be, nonetheless, even with the break up, that this is going to break down, but ultimately I think this likely will break up towards a target here at the top of the triangle in the 74.7 area. All right, let's have a look at bonds. Okay, bonds. This hasn't been as interesting as I expected it to be over the last week. We had a head and shoulders. It's broken down with a target in the 111.27 area, and actually we got a decent head and shoulders again on ZN, which is broken down with a target in the 111.06 area. But moving over to the bigger picture charts, we've got. We had a daily chart. Sorry, I'm just moving these around. It's a daily chart. We actually had a daily buy signal brewing, and I was expecting to see more of a rally on yields and more downside on bonds. As it is, it's got over the daily middle band, but it actually played out and made target pretty quickly. And exactly the same on TNX, which of course is the yield equivalent of ZN. I'm still liking very much the triangles being bullish. I'm thinking that bond yields could get a lot more upside from here. It's just that we've had less than I expected over the last week. We will see. I think the main reason I'm thinking bonds have a good reasons to go up is mismanagement from the current administration, and also the fact that the budget deficit is really out of control. I think if this was anyone who wasn't the holder of the main reserve currency of the world, their interest rates would probably already be over 6%. As it is, I'm thinking we may well be reaching that in a year or two, because as with when Trump got in 2016, he talks a good game about fiscal responsibility and paying down the debt, but actually the debt has been rising considerably faster, as it did last time he was in power. All right, FVX, nice looking triangle too. Got slightly below that last low there, but it's still a decent looking triangle, although not quite as classically nice as it was, although the TNX one is very nice. Looking at TLT, TLT, still wondering about this possible head and shoulders that might be forming, although I'm really not expecting to see a big spike in bond prices. We could see it, but it just seems doubtful. It doesn't fit with anything we're seeing really on TNX. We didn't have a sell signal here. If we had, it would have made the target. We are reversing at big resistance here, and we do have a very nice looking potential level top here. On a sustained break below basically 86, this would have a target in about the 80.5 area. So we will see how that goes, and that would take us basically back to this low that we saw in the middle of last year. All right, great. Let's have a look at oils. Okay, obviously, this is the interesting one at the moment. We've actually reached a high of almost 120, and that brings me back to something that I was saying on the bigger picture post I did on Tuesday about the fact that these all look like flags. Let's have a look and see how we're looking on those. HO, we've managed to get up to about 4.05. RBOB, we've managed to get up to about 3.12. I think they've all made their initial targets here. We had a 60-minute sell signal fix. That has failed tonight on this very strong move up. And on NG, we're seeing a bit of a breakup over, we've seen a stronger breakup now. We've got a possible 60-minute sell signal brewing. The IHS has broken up with a target in the 3.61 area. I was saying on Wednesday that we might well see some decent upside action here. I don't have a bigger picture pattern that is really exciting, but we did have this IHS, and at the moment, that's broken up and is about 80% of the way to the target. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture chart on those. Okay, WTech. Looking at, hang on. All right, looking at the chart here, what I was saying on Tuesday was that the double bottom has broken up with a target in the 100.72 to 101.82 area. Obviously, that's made target. We've made it to almost 120 overnight, and that is a price that will show up on this chart. At the end, at the close tomorrow. What I also said was this wasn't a bad looking bull flag. And therefore, we might then move on to the next target, which would be the flag target would be a retest of 126.42. We're getting close to that. We've made it up to 120 overnight. It's not a huge jump to get to there. And if we get to there, well, there's always a possibility we might go back to the all-time high, which is in the 147.27 area. Yeah. So I'm thinking that we've got a pretty good chance of getting back to 126.42, and it looks like we might make that tomorrow. As it is, the initial double bottom target has been made. All right, looking at heating oil. Heating oil, the IHS broke up with the target at 3.7 area. That reached target on the 5th of March, and I was wondering about it move to the 4.46 area. Where is HO now? 4.38. It's very close to that target. Again, I was saying this could be a bull flag, and that looks as though it's going to make that target at 4.46. That, we don't have a higher target to go to the all-time high, because that actually is the all-time high. And we'll reach it in less than a week. Okay, looking at gas oil. Gas oil, we had a double bottom here, and I don't think that had broken up. Okay, large broken up bottom, double bottom is broken up with the target in the 2.913 to 3.092 area. Right, RBOB is now at 3.2, so obviously it's made that target overnight and beyond. If this is a bull flag, this has got further to go. If this is a bull flag, if this is a bull flag, then the target is the all-time high here on 4.12. We are obviously a long way short of that, so we might make it, but nonetheless, we're still currently a long way short of that. We've made it up into about 3.2 area. It may make it, and this again has as much right to be a bull flag as the one on heating oil does. So we will see how that goes. All right, looking at natural gas, not a lot to say on here. Really, I was leaning towards the downside, but I was thinking with the Iran thing, because 25% of the natural gas shipped around the world goes through the Strait of Hormuz, obviously, and Kuwait is shutting down production at the moment, then this was likely to go up too, and we are seeing that. We had a buy signal, weak buy signal on the RSI 5 on the daily chart. That's made target. We've got back over the daily middle band, and it looks as though we're going to get back over the 50 DMA and possibly the 100 DMA, which I've got in about the 3.45 and 3.53 areas respectively, and NG is now currently at 3.46, so we are testing the 50 DMA. May well go higher. I don't have a pattern for it to go higher though. We had lovely patterns on the oils, which have been playing out like champs. I don't have one on NG, suggesting that we might go much higher. And I do want to say something on the oils generally here. Everything depends on how long this lasts and whether Iran can actually close the Strait of Hormuz. I'm thinking they may well be able to. They've certainly got plenty of Shahed drones. And actually, they're going to be causing more damage across the Middle East. I think that might actually prompt some of the US's Middle Eastern allies to ask them to not do any operations from them anymore, because they're very, very vulnerable. And the US made actually a very serious mistake when it attacked a desalination plant in Iran. Now, desalination plant in Iran actually only uses desalination for about 3% of its water, but Bahrain uses it for 60 to 70%. I think Saudi uses it for 60 to 70%, and Dubai uses it for about 80% of its water. UAE, I think, about the same. So actually, while desalination is not a huge issue in Iran, it's a huge issue in all of the US's allies. Kuwait, again, very dependent on it. And what the Iranians did in response to what the Americans did in bombing their desalination plant was they actually bombed the Bahraini one when they only have one, and it provides 60% of the water in the country. If the Iranians start attacking those seriously, then we might actually find that there is a very, very serious water crisis across the Middle East in all US allies. And that actually could be a huge problem. So it was a very short-sighted thing the Americans did, actually bombing the desalination plant and opening those up as targets. We shall see. I don't think the US campaign's been particularly well planned, and it's nothing I've seen listening to Trump or looking at Hegseth's fairly ridiculous interviews. I thought Hegseth should be wearing a thong, oil up his muscles, and doing poses while he's doing his tough talk about the military. He's a ridiculous guy to have in charge of any military. So, but I think nonetheless, the campaign's going fairly well. It is It is from the air, though. Now, there's a couple of observations I'd like to make. One, there are some alternative plans because obviously it's not been a secret that the Strait of Hormuz might be closed. There are alternative plans to get oil from that region. Also, even though Trump missed a very obvious opportunity to fill up while prices were very weak, to fill up the US oil reserve, nonetheless, they've got a sizable oil reserve. All the main Western countries have those too. And I've seen an estimate today that really, while it might cut down the oil to, let's say, 5 million barrels a day potentially below what is being used, with the reserves being held in Western countries, and all the major economies. Possibly not so much in Japan and South Korea, but certainly in all the European countries and so on. With that amount coming off the world market, the reserves could probably make that up for a period of a couple of years. So we are, after this is finished going up, oil is likely to correct very, very, very sharply. We will see how that goes, but I think in terms of where it is in getting prices here, I think there might be more panic. We might see new all-time highs across the board. They could go considerably higher, but actually, in practical terms, I don't think the world economy is in a huge amount of danger. It's in more danger of from the price increase than it is from the oil unavailability. So we will see how that goes, but I'm thinking that after this spike, depending on news, depending on what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz, and depending on how long it takes for the news to get out that actually this isn't necessarily quite as much of an emergency as everyone thinks, I think we could see oil come back down a lot. Not to the prices it was at, and while there is instability and this conflict is going on at whatever scale, I think there will be a premium on oil while this continues, but nonetheless, I think it's overblown at the level it's reaching at the moment. Nonetheless, we do still have a setup where we could see new highs across the board, and we may well see those. And we are obviously much of the way there, with oil having already doubled from the recent lows. So we shall see. All right, great. So that's where we are on oil. Let's have a look at precious metals, which have not been. Normally, if we're seeing flight to safety, that's going to push the precious metals up, and that's going to push bonds up. We're not actually seeing either of those here. We've got a buy signal here. It's reached possible near miss target. This kind of looks like we might be about to do another leg down, or at least retest this low near the monthly pivot, which it hasn't quite done yet, and I'm leaning towards that happening. SI looks like a bear flag that's breaking down. Palladium looks like a bear flag that's broken down. Platinum looks like a bear flag that's breaking down. I'm thinking we may see some more downside on all of them. I'm a bit surprised, though. We're seeing some upside tonight, but given that there is such a panic on the equities markets here, I'm a bit surprised we haven't seen precious metals up more. HG, the triangle has broken down, and actually we came down a lot here. For obviously a fairly stiff rally that's happening at the moment, and we didn't quite make the target. The target is a retest of this for this triangle, is for a retest of this low here, the early February low, and I've got that at about the 5.61 to 2 area. We haven't made that yet. Chances are we are going to make it. All right, let's have a look at the precious metals first. Wait a sec, on the bigger picture. Okay, on the daily chart, we're still holding the daily middle band, and we've actually been holding that for most of last week. That is the support at the moment, and at the moment it is holding, and until it breaks, that it may well continue to hold. Obviously, we've broken all of those on equities, so that's not a concern there. Silver, we're still holding the daily middle band as well. Again, that's holding a support at the moment, but once that breaks, that opens up some potentially fairly interesting downside. Palladium is below the daily middle band. I'm leaning towards some more downside here. I think overall, subject to what's happening in Iran and flight to safety concerns, I think we're likely to see some more downside before we see new highs with confidence. On the other hand, if things really go to hell in Iran, which I'm hoping they don't, then we could see more highs in gold, as we do see a flight to safety properly occur. Platinum, obviously we'd made the IHS target already. Palladium hadn't made that target, and I'm thinking that after some retracement and consolidation here, we'll probably head up towards that target in the 2540 area. It's platinum, by the way. All platinum apparently comes from comets. So all of it, or at least that was what a program was suggesting to me today. I'll do some more look into it. But this actually is a space metal. It's I think all of the platinum that's been found on the Earth actually was delivered by comets impacting the Earth. So interesting. All right, looking at the daily chart, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed on platinum, and we've got an RSI 5 sell signal, which has reached the possible near miss target. Leaning towards more downside before we start seeing meaningful highs. All right, copper. Copper, we obviously reached this is a big level, given this chart goes back to 1970. This was a big trend line. We saw a punch through it, and we've seen a pullback below it. This could be a significant high, and I'm watching to see whether or not it's going to be. If that's the case, then this would be a rising wedge, I think, and this would be an overthrow, and we would be starting a significant move to the downside. That partially depends on whether this is going to be bid up like everything else that's been using in data centers, and how important that data center demand is going to be in terms of copper demand. I find it a little hard to believe that's going to be huge or larger than sort of, weak housing and potentially, I think, weak China demand. We will see. All right, GDX, we've had an RSI 14 sell signal fixed for a while. RSI 5 sell signal is fixed on the weekly last week, although the RSI 5 that is brewing on GDXJ is still brewing. I would note that we've got a potential level top here on GDX now, and we've got another one potentially on GDXJ. I'm wondering if we might see, when we see more downside on the other metals, I'm thinking we may actually play out and make those targets with a sizable retracement. We shall see. All right, great. Let's have a look at the other commodities. All right, KC, we've got a double bottom that's broken up with a target in the 308 area. No current divergence on sugar. Sugar, we've got an IHS which failed, but I was noting that we could be forming a potentially larger IHS here. That's got resistance in about the 1430 area, and actually that's looking as though it might deliver. If that breaks up, the target basically would be the same at a retest of the December high, which I've got at about the 14.95 area. All right, looking at CC, CC, we're seeing a bit of a rally here. I was saying we might see that. The buy signal's made target. Bigger picture, this is larger than it looks, because actually this is up about 10%. It looks so small because this halved here, so it's basically just gone back and taken a bit of that back. It's not a huge rally. I'm not really seeing much basis for a huge rally here, but I am noting here that we've got a potential inverted head and shoulders neckline here. I'm just going to draw that in, so bear with me a moment. And we've got pretty close to that. We could form a right shoulder and go higher. It's certainly not that, I'm certainly not suggesting this isn't overdue for a rally. I'm just saying we don't really have a setup to see that yet. We could start forming that. It doesn't need to reach this. This could be slightly down sloping. If we were to start seeing a pullback here and that got back down into, let's say, the 3000 area, then we can have a decent little rally here, which potentially could look for up here in about the 3600 area. We shall see. All right, looking at CT. CT, we made the head and shoulder target, and I was mentioning this could be a potential double bottom, and it does look like it might be a double bottom. So waiting to see if that's going to break up. If so, we could see a decent rally. Looking at lumber. Lumber, possible IHS forming here, but not particularly well formed if it is, but we'll see. We have seen a nice little rally here. I'm waiting basically to see when this resumes the downtrend. It could rally up some more from here. A 6-minute buy signal, however, has already reached the possible near miss target. Wheat has continued higher. Beyond any patterns that we can see on this chart, but I have got them on the other. We've broken up. I was saying on the chart tonight that we were likely to go back and retest this high. Sorry, in my notes tonight, we were likely to go back and retest this high. We have gone back and retested that high. Corn, and wheat. I was mentioning last year that I was wondering whether these might have a pretty good 2026, but to be honest, I wasn't seeing much reason in the fundamentals to think that they might do that. But at the moment, we are seeing some strong action. Now, we do have patterns suggesting that might go up considerably higher. Soy, I don't really have a pattern for that, but it's been going up anyway. Soybean oil also been going up. These have made big spikes up tonight, and I'm wondering why that is. Possibly because, I mean, there is talk that the Strait of Hormuz is actually disrupting the supply of fertilizer. Maybe that's it. We'll see. Live cattle, but actually this move up in wheat and corn particularly has obviously predates this conflict, but obviously it's been given a bounce by the conflict, or at least it appears to have done. Live cattle, I'm wondering about a possible another leg down here. We shall see. Not a particularly clear setup. HE, I'm wondering again about another leg down here as well. All right, great. Let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And coffee. Coffee, the daily RSI 5 buy signal has made target. No divergence on the RSI 14. We had a nice lucky double top, which has almost made the target, but not quite, and potentially a larger double top there, which could break down. Although, to be honest, it's not a double top I like because the second high is lower. So this could all be a very big bull flag. Although I've no reason to think that coffee is going to go back up to these historically fairly unprecedented highs anytime soon. We shall see. All right, looking at sugar, and bigger picture, we've got a target down in the 9 area. Smaller picture, we're seeing a bit of a rally here, possible weak RSI 14 buy signal brewing on the weekly. Weak RSI 14 buy signal is fixed and looks like it might do something on the daily chart, but it's not particularly impressive. And we don't really have much in the way of a large reversal pattern here. We shall see. All right, cocoa. We have come down a very, very, very long way, and we've got back into a range of, a more normal range of where we would expect this to be trading after these wild highs up here. I was saying that once we got back into this range, we might see a bit of a rally. We are seeing a bit of a rally. We've also made the possible near miss target on the monthly chart. Looking at the daily chart, we've got a weak RSI 14 buy signal fixed, and the weak RSI 5 buy signal has reached the possible near miss target. I was looking at these last week. Could see higher from here. Not expecting this to have enormous legs, but we could see somewhat higher. All right, wheat. Now, this is something I was talking about last week, and we've got a potential nested double bottom here. I've marked in the target on the first one because we're getting very close to it, and it looks like we're going to break over it tomorrow. A sustained break up over 617.25 would have a target range in the 739 to 742 area, and it's a nice looking pattern. It's been forming for a long time, and this is the rally off the low for the move down that came from the very big high in 2022. And this this one here getting up to 750 wouldn't even get us back to the 38.2 retracement. This looks credible to me. Is there a good fundamental reason for this? Well, yeah, we had a huge decline and it's time for a rally. It may not need any more than that. We do have a possible RSI 14 sell signal brewing. May well lose that divergence tomorrow, but we're pretty close for this breaking up, and I think it's going to. I was also seeing something similar on corn. We were further away from this, but I think we're back up over basically 460 here. This double bottom also has a shot, and double bottom on a break over 504.50 would look for a target in the 624 to 640.25 range. And it's looking as though it might do that. We will see. On the corn chart, on the daily, no current divergence. I was looking for a retest of this high here at 453. We've gone higher than that. We do have an IHS which is broken up with a target in the 495 area, and I think we're resuming the way towards that. It is the obvious read, and if that's the case, then we could obviously get up to the main double bottom resistance at 504.50. Now, soybeans, I don't have anything as clear as that here. We had a bear flag, and that's broken up. It wasn't a clean break. I'm not seeing an obvious pattern here, but I am seeing it up in the 1258 area, a potential inverted head and shoulders. There are other options, but at the moment, I don't really have a target on the upside because we don't have a pattern. Looking at the daily charts, just about still got a possible weak RSI 5 sell signal brewing. I think we're going to lose that tomorrow. We're heading up higher at the moment. I don't have an obvious target. All right, looking at cotton, we've got a lovely looking double bottom here too, and this is a peach. I haven't drawn that in yet because there's absolutely no sign of that actually delivering anything at the moment. Looking at the daily chart, weak RSI 5 sell signal reached possible near miss target. This has been just lost in space for a long time. We've got a nice looking double bottom here, which might play out at some point, but whatever is carrying up wheat and corn here, it's not carrying up cotton. Looking at lumber, lumber, the bigger picture is this bear flag here, double top that's broken down with a target at the same flag, at the flag target, which would be at 35250. The flag hasn't actually broken down yet, but I think it's going to in due course. That is the larger downtrend. In the short term, we've had a bit of a rally here, and we've got an RSI 5 buy signal fixed on the daily. Could see some more rally. We will see how that goes. All right, great. Let's have a look at crypto. Okay, crypto. We've seen a bit of a weak action over the weekend in terms of the bear flag here. We haven't broken down from this yet, but I've got that support in about the just below 64,000, and we will see how that goes. Looking at Solana, I had drawn in a flag here, and actually we broke very slightly below it at the low tonight. If we see more of a break, then I'll be looking for, and in due course, I'm looking for on all of these tests of their prior lows. I've got that at 67.65 on Solana. I've got that at 60.1K on Bitcoin, and on Ethereum, where again we've got a decent looking flag, but it hasn't broken down yet. I'd be looking for a retest of this low here at 1746.93. Now we would have, if we go down to there, a potentially interesting series of little level bottoms, but we would have to see how that went. That might or might not deliver anything. We will see. But if it does deliver something, we could see a more sizable rally from there than the very muted one we've seen from these latest lows. All right, great. In that case, I think that's a wrap. Everyone take care. I'll catch you guys again on Wednesday. Cheers.